Hey guys, Kaylee Jane here with Cedar Winds Farm. I just wanted to do a quick video addressing the topic of mineral deficiencies and how to spot them in your herd. Principally because I'm seeing a few of them in my goats right now, and it's something that I really keep an eye out for this time of year because it's winter. They have fewer food options, and also because it's breeding season, so the bucks are recovering from rut, which takes a kind of a toll on their bodies a lot of times, and the does are also going through their heat cycles. All of mine, I believe, are bred, so yay. But you know, being in heat takes a toll on them, and also, you know, pregnancy can be kind of rough on their bodies as well. So I just wanted to show you a couple things that I've been observing in my herd and talk about how I'm going to address those issues. So I've actually already treated him once, but he's about due for another round of copper. But I'm seeing symptoms of copper deficiency here in Alf, and this is really nice lighting because we're getting some nice natural light. It's a lot easier to spot in natural lighting. But if you can see, his coat just looks kind of dull. It looks a little bit rough. The best way I can say that I can tell what copper deficiency looks like is that their hair just looks fried. Like, it looks like somebody that bleached their hair too many times and they've just fried all of their hair. And I'll just give you a contrast. So this is Alf, and then this over here is his sister Cleo, and they should be about the same color, and you can see that her hair just has a much nicer texture and consistency. He has longer hair because he's a buck, and oftentimes they just get longer, rougher hair, but her hair just has more shine and luster to it, and it just does not have that rough, fried look. In addition to the hair coat issues, sometimes they will also lose the hair on the very tip of their tail, and they'll get something called fishtail. And Alf actually has it a little bit. See how he looks kind of bald right there in the middle on the very tip of his tail? It's not bad at all, but sometimes it can be really severe. They can also have hair loss around their eyes or on their faces. That can actually be a result of zinc deficiency as well. And a lack of pigmentation is usually especially noticeable on the face and around the eyes. And with bucks in rut, it can be quite tricky because they urinate on their faces. So sometimes, you know, they'll have a loss of pigment just because they've urinated on themselves, and they actually will bleach their hair. But he's not really showing that on his face. He just has white around his eyes, and that's his normal coloring. But you can just see from the rest of his coat that it's just a little bit dull, and just not as shiny and pretty as it should be. But he also is standing a little bit hunched up. See how he has his back kind of humped? And when a goat does that, you know that they're uncomfortable. So they will hump their back if they're in pain, if their gut is bothering them in some way. Sometimes if they have a really heavy parasite load, that will cause them to do that. And I've also noticed it a lot in copper deficient and zinc deficient goats. So it's just an interesting thing when I see a humped back like that. And his is not too bad. It was really bad about a month ago, and that's why he's in here with the does, because I wanted to be able to supplement him with grain a little more easily. I wanted to get his weight up. I dewormed him. I gave him copper, pardon me, and then he's been getting the good hay that I'm feeding to my does as well. So it's got more alfalfa and stuff in it. So he's actually looking a lot better. He's put on some weight, and he just seems a lot perkier and happier. I think he was just getting bossed around in the buck pen because my Weather and my other buck both have horns and Alf doesn't, and so I just think he wasn't probably getting everything that he needed in there. So anyways, he's actually on the up and up, and I'm pretty happy with how he's looking. But yeah, when I see that humped back, that's my sign that there's something going on with this goat. They don't feel good. There's something going on. And so oftentimes, you know, copper deficiency or zinc deficiency, that's going to really weaken their immune system, and so they may have as a result of that some kind of an infection that can happen, or a severe worm load. Copper deficiency especially can open them up to being severely overrun by barberpole worms. And so, you know, oftentimes it's not one issue if your goat's not feeling good. A heavy worm load or a heavy cocci load can result in a junky looking, nasty, rough coat as well. So, you know, that could be an issue that's going on. Another thing that I've often noticed with copper deficiency is sometimes they can get dry skin or flaky skin. Zinc deficiency can also cause that. So, you know, sometimes if in doubt, I'll give maybe copper, a few grams of copper, and then wait a week or two, and then if they haven't improved at all, I'll give a few grams of zinc and see if that fixes it. Once you learn your goat and how they exhibit signs of mineral deficiencies, then it makes it a lot easier for you to figure out exactly what they need and when they need it. Josie is also one that I'm watching for copper deficiency, and I think I'll probably be giving her a copper bolus because, again, her hair just looks kind of rough. And, you know, they do get more shaggy in the winter time. They get the longer hair. It's thicker, so it's not going to be the glossy, sleek summer coat. But she just has kind of a rough, dry, sort of fried appearance to her hair. And so I'm thinking that she might be a little bit copper deficient as well. The other thing that I'm spotting in my herd right now is selenium deficiency. And again, I treated these gals about a month ago, but I think they're about due for another treatment. And the biggest thing I see with selenium deficiency in these girls is the tail. Can you see how their tail is kind of curved? She's not holding it out straight like a goat normally would. So that was Butte that I just showed you there. And then Josie also has a little bit of selenium tail where it's just kind of floppy. And I think for them it's maybe like a genetic thing, that they both seem to run a little bit selenium deficient. The other thing you can see sometimes with selenium deficiency is if you look at their pasterns, sometimes their pasterns kind of sink down. And Josie actually is not too bad, but the pastern is the space between this little bump here and their hoof. And so on a healthy goat, you're going to be like Butte here, where see their pasterns not quite straight, but pretty close to straight. But when they're sinking down in their pasterns, it becomes closer to a parallel with the ground, and that can also be a symptom of selenium deficiency. Selenium deficiency is also really important just in pregnant does in general, because if they are selenium deficient, you're more likely to have weak kids. Kids that have severe selenium deficiency have something called white muscle disease, and it basically means that they just don't have hardly any muscle tone. They're not able to move around, stand up, do all the normal things that a healthy kid should. It can also affect the amniotic sac. Selenium deficiency can result in a thickened amniotic sac, and so that can mean that, you know, the kid may not break out of the sac, the doe may not be able to get it off of them quickly enough, and they may actually suffocate if you're not there to assist during the birth. And so I also think that it can result in just a lack of uterine tone in the doe, so she may have a higher risk of a retained placenta, or just not have the muscle tone to be able to push the kids out. So what I use for selenium is this stuff here. I'm going to flip my camera around so this isn't backwards for you. You can get this at pretty much any like livestock supply company. I use Jeffers or Valley Vet usually. You can see this tube has been used, and it has a little dial here, so you can just dial in how much you want to give. I usually give between 5 and 10 cc's at a time. You don't want to go too overboard with this, because you can cause selenium toxicity, and that will also cause health issues for your goats. Typically, unless I see symptoms of selenium deficiency in one of my does, like I'm seeing in Josie and Butte, and again, it's not too bad because I actually treated them about a month ago, and I've just been watching them, and I think I'm going to go ahead and give them each another treatment just because I think they need a little boost to get over the edge, so to speak. What I would do in one of my goats that's, again, not showing real major symptoms is I usually dose at about 2 months before they're due to have the kids, and then I'll give them another dose about a week before their due date. And when I've done that, I feel like everything has gone well, and the kids are usually quite healthy and vigorous, and I haven't had any issues that I could pinpoint as being related to selenium deficiency. Somebody once told me, I think it was a vet, that goat issues tend to snowball, and it is really true. If there's one issue and you don't get on top of it, a lot of times, you know, that one issue will snowball into 3 or 4 other issues. And I'm not saying that to make you paranoid, but it is just something that I've learned that I really need to watch out for and be careful of. Just making sure that they have the minerals that they need when they need them. It's kind of challenging here because I think our soil is sort of depleted here. I've been learning about the grasses and the plants and how they tell you what's in your soil, and I feel like we just have some real soil health issues which need to be addressed. That's an issue for another day. But also we have really heavy calcium in our water, and I think that also plays a role. Calcium can inhibit absorption of certain minerals. Because of that, I think I do have to compensate and add other minerals in that I probably wouldn't have to if I was, you know, on a different water system. Eventually, I would like to breed goats that can do well on this property and have fewer and fewer mineral issues as time goes on. But obviously I have to start somewhere, and the mineral thing is something that you really can't know in advance. When you're bringing in a new animal, you can't know how they're going to interact with you, with your herd, and how they're going to do on your land. That's just kind of something that you're going to have to figure out as you go along. So you know, you really are kind of shooting blind when you're starting out your herd. I'm planning to selectively breed for animals that are tougher and hardier and require less and less input and maintenance on my part, and that can do well on this land here. The other thing I wanted to show you, the goats are making a mess here because this feeder fell apart. I bought these feeders because I thought they would be great. And they are not. So anyways, they have these small little holes here, and my hope was that because it really limits the amount of hay a goat can pull through that hole, that it would help eliminate hay waste. But what it actually does is it just aggravates them to the point where they actually stand on this plastic feed bunk here. This one hasn't fallen apart yet. They stand up on this plastic part, this black plastic, and they pull hay out of the top of the feeder. Josie and Butte have pulled out enough that they are just eating out of the feed bunk. But anyway, so when they do that, you know, this is a 150, 200 pound goat. Obviously this one actually needs to be tightened up. So it puts quite a bit of strain and it rocks this this bunk. Yeah, I'm talking about you. And then what that does is it puts a lot of stress on these bolts here that are holding the whole feeder together, and eventually, unless you get it tightened up every time it gets loose, they will shear off these bolts, and then this part will come off. So I've had to replace bolts several times now. Hi, Butte. And I mean, this is just going to probably be an ongoing problem as long as I have these feeders. So I just really wouldn't recommend buying feeders with hay openings that are this small, because your goats are probably going to jump on the feeder and just really tear it up, because it's just not made structurally to sustain that much weight. So anyways, I would recommend getting or buying a different type of feeder if you have any choice at all. Josie loves selenium. Selenium's super easy to give her because she eats it like candy. Don't you? You love it. Yes. Don't eat the tube cap. want some? You're less excited about it than your mom. Good girl. See, it's yummy. Your mama likes it. Hi. No, this is for your baby. Come here, love. Nope, nope, nope. Joe's no. Good girl, Butte. Good girl. See, it's good. Butte was less thrilled about the selenium than her mother, so she got decorated. See, this is what I was talking about. This is what is tearing up my feeders. It's just not designed to withstand that amount of strain. So I'm going to have to get out here and tighten up the bolts on that one. And then I recently bought some new bolts. I just haven't had time to put the bottom back on this feeder. Because when it's down on the ground like this, they just pull so much hay out of the top, and they really waste it a lot. So last night I was looking over my herd for signs of mineral deficiencies, and I ended up dosing Butte and Josie with selenium. But this morning I decided to go ahead and give Alf a few more grams of copper bolus. So I'm just going to show you real quick how I do that. A lot of people use a balling gun. So you have the bolus and you load it into the balling gun and you push it down the goat's throat. That has not worked well for me historically. So I've just started mixing with their feed, and you do end up with a little bit of waste that way because, you know, sometimes it sticks to the edges of their feed bowl and they don't necessarily get the whole bolus. But I just found it's a lot easier to give it to them that way rather than trying to shove it down their throat. So I'm just going to show you real quick how I do that. It's quite simple and straightforward, and it just makes my life a little bit easier. So that's always a good thing in my book. So these are the copper boluses that I use. And this one's actually for cattle. So this is 12.5 grams of copper in each bolus. And that's actually too much for a goat. So you have to break the boluses open and put a smaller amount out for your goats. The reason I got these is because they were less expensive per gram of copper, but I don't think I'll probably buy these again because the boluses are hard to open, and so I end up having to cut some of them open to get the copper oxide wire particles out, and that just kind of makes a mess. So probably in future I'll go ahead and just get the goat boluses because I feel like they're a bit easier to use. So I've got this bolus right here, and as you can see, it's pretty big. It's got 12.5 grams of copper in it. So I'm going to open this, and I think this one will actually open. Some of them are hard to open, but you can just take the top off here. All right. So that's what the copper oxide wire particles look like. And they literally are just little pieces of copper. And what they're designed to do is, I don't know why the focus is so weird on this thing. Anyways, what they're designed to do is go into the goat's digestive system and be slowly absorbed into the body from the digestive system. So fun fact, we just got this new kitchen scale, and I was really excited to use that because I haven't measured my copper boluses. I've just eyeballed them because I didn't have a scale that could actually measure grams accurately. And I was all excited to use this one, and I just dumped out my bolus, and this is supposed to be a 12.5 gram bolus. It's completely unopened, and my scale is reading. First it read 9 grams, and then it read 10 grams, then it read 11 grams. So I do not think this scale is accurate. So I'm going to go back to eyeballing my copper dosages, I guess. Haven't killed a goat yet. Hopefully this won't be the first time. One thing I just wanted to point out as well, because this is a slow release form of copper, it's not all going to get into the goat's system at once. And so you can cause toxicity issues if you go too crazy with your copper dosage. The recommended dosage that I've gotten from people that I trust and I think that they know what they're doing is, move this bag out of the way here, is 1 gram per 22 pounds of body weight for your goats. I usually end up underdosing because I figure it's better to give a little less and then have to dose a little more frequently than run the risk of overdosing. So that's just something to keep in mind. And since I dosed Alf a couple weeks ago, I'm only going to give him like 4 grams, and he's probably going to only get like 3 to 3.5 grams of that dose, because some of it is going to end up being stuck to the sides of his feed dish and he's not going to get it all. In my book, that's still easier than wrestling down a goat with a balling gun. But, you know, if a balling gun works for you, go for it. So anyway, I'm just going to eyeball that. It's going to be roughly a third of the copper that's here on the on my scale here, which isn't working. So I'm just going to kind of estimate how much that is. He is probably about 150 pounds, and so I'm giving him about the dosage that you would give to, let's see, 22, 44, 60, about an 88 or 100-pound goat. So I am underdosing him, and the only reason I'm dosing him again is just because, like I said, I gave him a dose a few weeks ago. It was about 3 weeks ago now, and I've been watching him. I did see improvement, but his coat condition has not drastically improved, which it's not gonna be an overnight thing, but I should have seen more improvement by now. And I felt like his fishtail symptoms that I showed you the other night have actually gotten worse, because I was not noticing fishtail in him before, and now I am seeing some of that. So that makes me think copper is probably the right thing to give him, but he probably needs to get a bit more than what I had given him originally. So that's why I'm going to give him another little dose, and hopefully that'll just get him boosted up over the edge, and he'll be in good shape from now on. So Alf's getting about 1/2 pound of feed, and I'm not going to put all that in there right now. I'm just going to put a little bit in there. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to separate out about 1/3 of that bolus amount. If in doubt, give a little bit less, because you can always give more later if you need to. But you know, again, you don't want to poison your goat. So I think most people err on the side of not giving enough, honestly. And a lot of people dose copper on a schedule. I don't dose on a schedule, and it's a little bit more intensive because when you're not on a schedule, you have to watch everyone and dose individuals when they need it. But the reason I don't dose on a schedule is because I am trying to see which animals need the least intervention, and the only way I know to do that is to wait until they show me that they need intervention before I do something. Because like I said the other night, my goal is to eventually breed animals that require less and less and less individual supplementation. So you know, I'm just kind of monitoring and tracking that and seeing how many times a year I need to, you know, give extra minerals. And obviously I'm going to give those extra minerals because I want my animals to be healthy. But the ones that have to consistently be dosed over and over, above and beyond the free choice minerals that are available to them all the time, which I will share more about that system in another video. Those are the ones that are probably going to get phased out of my breeding program eventually. You know, a lot of these goats, they have other qualities I really like, and so, you know, I'm not in a hurry to get rid of them, but they are ones that I sort of have earmarked for eventually they're going to be moved on, and I'm going to keep kids that will hopefully require less dosing with copper and selenium and zinc and dewormer and all the other things that I do occasionally have to dose my animals with. Okay, so I put a dollop of molasses in there, and then I'm just gonna dump this in on top. I feel like I'm hosting a goat cooking show or something. This obviously got molassesed at one point. Is molassesed a verb? I guess it is now. All right, so I got this, and the molasses is great because the goats like it. They think it's tasty because it's real sweet. But then also the copper particles stick to it real well, so they can kind of just be gently. This molasses is kind of stiff because it's cold out here. I have my stirring stick. You can use your fingers too, but then you have sticky molasses fingers, and that's not always very nice. I'm just gonna kind of get all that mixed together there. Do a nice little ball, and then I'm just gonna pour the rest in and give it a little stir. And that's good. He should like that. And that should give him his copper dose. I'm also planning to copper bolus Josie, but I'm probably going to do that tonight because I don't need to bring her in and feed her and milk her. I'm not milking her this morning since I'm drying her off, so I'm going to be milking her tonight, and I'll just go ahead and give her her copper tonight when I already have to bring her in. The other thing I wanted to mention is some goats are really picky and they freak out if you put anything weird in their feed. And so one thing that I like to do with all of my goats that I bring in, the babies or new goats that I buy, is I like to put a little dollop of molasses on their feed like once a day or however often I'm feeding them. And keep doing that until they learn that it's a treat, because sometimes they'll freak out. They're like, this is a weird thing in my food. I won't eat my food at all. And so you just kind of gradually keep putting it in just a little bit at a time until they realize, hey, this stuff is actually delicious and we love it. And then you can mix stuff with it and they'll eat whatever, pretty much whatever you mix with that molasses, they're going to eat. So anyway, that's how I sort of train them that, hey, molasses is good and it's a nice treat. And I'll do that before I'm trying to dose them with wormer or copper or anything else that I would be mixing with the molasses to get them to eat it. That has worked really well so far. So it just makes my life a little bit easier when they're mobbing me to take their medicine because it's a treat, rather than me having to chase them down and poke it down their neck. And here is Alf chowing down on his copper. As you can see, he's quite excited about it. So definitely makes my life a bit easier. Also wanted to show you Cleo's teats. They are lengthening. I noticed this yesterday. I was just out in the pen with them and I was like, oh my gosh, look, her teats are longer. So that's a big change just even from last week when I filmed my update on my pregnant does. So there you go. I also this morning increased Cleo's feed ration to 3/4 of a pound instead of a 1/2 pound because she just was acting hungry. And Cleo, I love, she's a kind of a loud mouth anyway. She's always has something to say, something to complain about frequently. But I don't know, she just seemed really hungry. And so I just decided, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and give her a little more grain because I think she probably does need it right now. So hopefully that'll get her what she needs. She is bred to Linus, who is Syl's son. And Syl actually had triplets last year. So it's a possibility that Cleo could be carrying triplets as well. I kind of hope not. I hope she just has 2 because that would be better for her first time, I think. But, you know, it is what it is. So, you know, if she's carrying triplets, she could be really needing those extra feed. And also, like I mentioned before, she is kind of lower on the pecking order. And so if somebody's going to go short on the hay, it's going to be Cleo, because when everybody else, you know, eats the stuff that they like, they're going to come push her off. and eat hers as well. So that's just the way it is, isn't it, Clee? Yes, you're a good girl. I just know that a lot of people have questions about mineral deficiencies, and I feel like it is highly individual. You know, deficiencies do exhibit different ways in different animals, just like in people. You know, our health doesn't always look the same from one person to another. And so it is really helpful to just get out there, observe your animals, and kind of start making mental notes or actually writing stuff down. Something I'm trying to get better at. I'm really not good at writing things down. It's all up here. If I have a stroke, somebody's going to be out of luck trying to manage my herd. So I'm actually trying to manage that better and actually make notes. But anyways, just make notes, you know, take observations. Don't be afraid to try different things. Like I said, you know, with the minerals, if you're not sure what you're seeing in your herd, you know, try just a couple grams of copper or a couple grams of zinc, or, you know, a few cc's of selenium. See if it makes a difference. And if it does, then you know, like, hey, this is how selenium deficiency exhibits in this animal, or how copper deficiency exhibits in this animal. So yeah, don't be afraid to experiment a little bit. And, you know, again, if you're just giving small doses, you're probably not going to kill your goat. They're probably going to be fine. Just don't go too crazy with it. If you have any questions about mineral deficiencies, I'll be happy to help if I can. Hi, Alfie. And so thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Hey, good boy. Oh. He's so sweet. He is my sweet. I've had some really sweet bugs, but I think Alf might be the sweetest one I've had yet. I think you might have to take the prize. I do. I think you might. You are really sweet.